This is Headline Humboldt. I'm James Faulk. Thanks for joining us. The ongoing effort to vaccinate residents of Humboldt County is proceeding, with almost a third of eligible people fully vaccinated, county officials reported this week. That's more than 90,000 individual shots, a stark and praiseworthy logistical achievement. That being said, the county's vaccination capacity is so far going unmet. In other words, more appointments are available than there are people getting their shots. Officials are pushing the unvaccinated this week to get their initial dose appointments as soon as possible. Given the large number of second dose appointments that are scheduled over the next few weeks, there may not be another new first round offering until sometime in June. But Saturday, tomorrow, at Fortuna High School, officials will host a vaccination clinic from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's in addition to the now regular events at the Arcata Community Center. To secure an appointment, you can log on to the state's reservation system at myturn.ca.gov and enter your information. There are plans in the works for a mobile medical van to be equipped for vaccinations in the near future as well. We'll bring you more on the schedule and locations of this deployment when they become available. So while we are making progress, a troubling development this week has county health officials advising continued caution. The virulent and widespread UK variant has now been found in Humboldt County. Officials indicated that a recent super spreader event at a Eureka church was likely due to this more infectious and potentially deadly strain, making its presence felt. As ever, the balancing of dangers from disease and the benefits of reopening has become an art form. This week, on that front, officials announced the start of a new regulatory process in Humboldt County cities to help them hold safe but well-attended events over the upcoming summer. The success or failure of this endeavor could dictate the fate of such North Coast treasures as Crabs Baseball. We'll have an update on their upcoming season in a few minutes. In the midst of all these mutually supportive efforts to preserve and defend many of this area's cultural traditions, the Humboldt Area Foundation, one of the most important funding institutions on the North Coast, has announced an effort to update its strategic plan and reshape the standards by which it determines what projects and efforts get funded and which don't. The change could impact the direction of our county's public and private endeavors for years to come. We'll explain how. Now, the interview. Bryna Lipper, Chief Executive Officer of the Humboldt Area Foundation and Wild Rivers Community Foundation, joins us to talk about the strategic plan update, what it means, and how people can get their input heard. Welcome, Bryna.
Thank you, James. It's nice to be here with you.
So let's first talk nuts and bolts. First, let's establish Humboldt Area Foundation does a lot of work in this community and funds a lot of good causes and is, very responsible for a lot of the good work that goes on, I think, by nonprofits and others. How does the strategic plan work, and how does it impact where some of that money goes?
Yeah, so most organizations, I would imagine, that are our size, certainly our peers and community foundations around the nation, have strategic long-term plans. It is a really responsible way to manage and communicate what it is that you're doing, how you expect to evaluate yourselves, and how you're going to report that out to community. And also, just to establish with the audience, community foundations are a really unique and extraordinary type of organization. So we have our own discretionary resources that we manage, but we also manage many other entities' resources that they invest in us. And we do that through a long-term endowment plan. And so community members are also investing in the vision that they see for the region. And through this, the Humboldt Area Foundation and Wild Rivers Community Foundation will be defining what our discretionary resources are used for. So community members, organizations, donors, individuals who have established funds where they have their set intention, that will be continued to support those intentions and those visions. Gotcha. This is for our discretionary resources and the funds that we determine how to use, how to invest in the community. Yeah. So I think that that's really important to establish that we have about $6 million that we invest in community through our discretionary resources through our annual payout, including the sort of funds that we determine. This will designate how we use those funds.
Yeah. And now, but other sort of funds that people have established in memoriam or whatever, when people pass
That's
and
right.
they want, that will still continue to go.
There will be absolutely no change to the consistent management of those funds, whether they're donor advised funds or designated funds. This is the use of our discretionary resources, which is still very substantial in the community. I mean, last year alone, we created a fund to support the most urgent needs that we found in COVID, as you were just talking about some of those numbers. Our fund was around $4 million. So we, as you mentioned, designate and determine a significant amount of resources for the community based on what most urgent needs are and long-term needs as we've defined in the strategic planning process.
So now, how is this process going to look moving forward? Are you planning on having community Zoom meetings, or how can the average citizen get involved?
Yeah, so the community's been involved in us defining this all along the way. Our hope pre-COVID was that we were going to have meetings across the entire region with individuals and organizations, but of course with COVID, that hasn't been available. But we have met with over 500 different organizations across our region and thousands of hours of input. As viewers will acknowledge, COVID sort of changed everything in the last year. We began to realize the most vulnerable voices needed to be elevated and heard, those without resources, whether they be economic people who lost their incomes, industries that changed during COVID. So we were able, through our outreach, a deep level of outreach to the community, to hear all of those voices. And that actually is designed within the new strategic areas of the program. So for example, when we say thriving youth and families is a big part of our strategic plan moving forward, we have heard loud and clear the need for affordable child care services across our region. We have heard that families and parents that work front lines or in essential services are stressed. And so our strategic plan actually comes from the recognition of we are going to be changed as a result of COVID, and we need to do better for the next generation.
Yeah, now, I mean, just to be a little bit more concrete with this, the plan lists 4 goal areas: racial equity, thriving youth and communities, which you just referenced, healthy ecosystems and environments, and a just economy and economic development. Now, so these were the 4 sort of topics that you cultivated through the community engagement, is that right?
Yeah, we and it ranged from everywhere of hearing input from large institutions with our long-term partners and peers, including, for example, HSU, all the way down to individuals that we hear from regularly through our Equity Alliance public engagements,
which
that
we've had on the show.
All community participants are able to and encouraged to participate in. So we heard from a broad range of organizations and individuals, but we will also continue to be designing those programs. So, for example, James, when you mentioned just economy is one of our goals. What the future holds for us is defining exactly what that looks like, all the way down to Garberville and all of the way, up to Curry County in Oregon. How do we create resilience for the future worker here? What are the safety nets that families actually need to thrive in Humboldt County? How do we look at recovery in an equitable way for all? So we're going to be designing exactly what that looks like over the course of the next year, if not several years, and then be measuring the impact of that with our investments.
It seems to me that when I look at those goals and I look at sort of the long-term objectives of the strategic plan, it requires the Humboldt Area Foundation to really know the community. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys get yourselves elbow deep in sort of the numbers and in the community organizations to figure that stuff out?
Yeah. Well, I think I moved here about a year and a half ago, so I'm still getting to know the community as well as all of my colleagues. But I am amazed at how well and how steeped the Humboldt Area Foundation and Wild Rivers Community Foundation and Humboldt Health Foundation and the nonprofit Alliance in Del Norte and NORCAN here and Equity Alliances, the number of affiliates that we have that are doing that deep level of community engagement and that are steeped in all of the different diverse communities across the region is extraordinary, and that is decades long. So I'm confident that those relationships exist. I think that the magic now is going to be pulling all of that together for one vision. How do we make ourselves come together and coordinate and collaborate and use our resources, both our money and our wisdom, to make this whole region just really thrive. So I think the magic is definitely in knowing individual communities, but also how we're going to choose to work together moving forward. And that's a big piece of what our ambition is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talked a little bit about your discretionary funds, which is what this would guide. You mentioned $6 million. Can you talk a little bit about where that money actually comes from? And I have a follow-up to that, I guess, after you're done.
Yeah, it comes in a variety of different ways, and philanthropy can be a little opaque to a lot of people. But we manage a large endowment of. Last year, we reported that out to be about $139 million overall, and that includes the funds that have been bequeathed to us in perpetuity. That includes donor advised funds, as you mentioned, and other entities that invest their resources with us, and we manage that within the market to get a certain amount of growth. The payout from that growth is a rate of somewhere between 4.5% and 5% annually, and that is what is used for the payout rates for many of our discretionary grants or our donor advised funds. But in addition to that, and what I feel is also really exciting is with this new work, we're going to be partnering with statewide and national philanthropy who also want to invest in this work. Historically, for the last decade, we've been working with a California endowment in Del Norte County and some of our tribal lands there. And they have been partners with us to the rate of over $10 million. And so as we partner with national philanthropy who is interested in these areas, we're going to continue to see that investment grow. Robert Wood Johnson Foundation is another example of a great national partnership, the Rockefeller Foundation that we've been working with. So we're going to see both local and national partners increase the level of investment. And we're hopeful that our local donors are going to be really excited about this and join into this co-investment strategy.
Yeah, I mean, the follow-up question I guess I had is that, you know, the Biden administration just offered or put forth a strategic plan. Part of it is, you know, roads and bridges, but another part of it is human infrastructure. And it seems that maybe some of the targets that you're identifying are some of the same sorts of priorities that are identified in his plan. Is there a mechanism by which you will sort of try to complement that spending if it does pass, or how do you guys accommodate that kind of rapid changing environment?
I think the whole region, many of the conversations that I've been having over the last many months with colleagues and partners across this whole region are really interested in our ability to catch those resources, those federal resources. I had a conversation this morning about the sort of redevelopment of sort of potential ports and the relationship with broadband infrastructure coming in, or renewable energy that will be executed, which is one of the priority of those plans. And so all of us, again, James, being able to work together is really essential in that. Being able to catch federal resources means that we are collaborating on our grants because we can leverage each other's funds. And that's what's required in federal grant programs. Managing federal grant programs is extraordinarily laborious work. So how we build coalitions that can manage those things and execute them together, that'll just strengthen us all. So I'm hopeful that there is going to be coalitions of all kinds of us out there, larger institutions from the region and local partners to be working together on capturing some of those state and federal resources that are coming down.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, if someone was interested in either donating to your fund to be managed in perpetuity like you were talking about, or if they are going to pass and they don't have anyone to leave their estate to, or something along those lines, how would they begin that process?
Well, I would say if individuals are interested in supporting the strategic plan, the 4 pillars, James, that you just mentioned, healthy ecosystems and environments, thriving families and youth, racial equity, and a just economy. The best way to do that is to get in touch with our donor relations team, and that is on our website, both at Wild Rivers and here at hafoundation.org. And they can help donors or institutions design those funds and those funding programs. Individuals can also just donate online to our opportunity funds. There's a drop-down menu that says donate here to the opportunity fund. And if individuals are interested in understanding their estate planning, again, our donor relations team can help guide that immediately or over a very long period of time as people think about their future and their legacy.
So we are about a minute out. I'm going to ask, you came from outside the area and you took over this organization, which is obviously, I mean, in some ways the center of charitable organizations on the North Coast. What would you say that you've identified as particular about the Humboldt County, giving character?
I think that there is so much civic infrastructure here. I have just been really moved. I came here from most recently the Boston area and New York prior to that and DC prior to that. None of those places lack a lot of involved and engaged people, but by ratio, the number of people that are involved in making this region better and investing in boards and civic organizations and nonprofit entities and having second and third and fourth lives to just contribute back has just been incredibly impressive to me. And I think that there is a magic and opportunity there for the future, again, with how we can coordinate and collaborate together around a shared vision will get us to the next generation of the region. I think it's really important as major infrastructure, like you just mentioned, is coming in, like the broadband lines or renewable energy systems. Those are going to be major investments that could be transformative to the region, and how we work together to get that done with all of that civic infrastructure. There's something that can be really remarkable around that.
All right, Bryna, thank you so much. We're out of time. As always, though, this conversation could continue for much longer, so we'll have to have you back.
Thank you, and thank KEET for its civic infrastructure as well.
Have a good evening. We'll be right back after this short break.
I'm on probation till 2027. It's hard to live life like this, always being looked at your worst.
Larry Krasner is set to announce a new probation policy.
We should be cutting the number of people on probation and parole in half.
And that makes zero sense. I don't like someone telling me what to do.
We just want to give a true, fair second chance. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go back to work or if I'm going to be going back to jail.
Eritrean officials have committed crimes against humanity: enslavement, imprisonment, torture.
How often did you see torture victims?
The country's led on fear.
This space was filled with inmates and you could hear them screaming.
Some were desperate. All were desperate.
One day, the truth will come out.
At a weekly press conference convened by county COVID officials, Public Health Officer Hoffman indicated that Humboldt County has finally confirmed the local presence of the infamous UK variant of COVID-19, one that has been the source of so much consternation worldwide. Its presence in our region may well explain the recent spike in local infections and hospitalizations.
We all recognize we've seen a bit of a change in COVID over the last couple of weeks. With our case counts rising, our hospitalizations rising, really emphasizes that we are definitely not out of the woods yet with COVID. There has been an identified super spreader event here that was linked to specific events in Humboldt County. We have now over 40 cases that were identified linked to that specific event, and dozens more that have come from the interactions of people from that event with others in our community. And on top of that, we've seen now 20 hospitalizations associated with this current outbreak. We've also identified that the UK variant is in our county, which is something we have suspected for a while, but now have confirmation of that. And we are highly suspicious that this event that we're seeing currently is related to a likely variant of concern spreading in our community, given the high hospitalization rates, more severe illness, and how rapidly this is spreading. The kinds of things that we're doing to try to make safe events in indoor and outdoor spaces, like Karen was mentioning, the city's working with public health to implement CDPH's guidelines are still extremely important. They are there to protect us as we continue the vaccination effort that Lindsay mentioned, as we try to get more and more people vaccinated and we get closer to our goal of having a more protected society.
At this week's press event, as Hoffman mentioned, Arcata City Manager Karen Diemer described a new process between the cities and county government to guide the holding of special events this summer. In Arcata, that process is key in determining the future of the 21-21 season of the Humboldt Crabs.
And I'd say the most common question I'm getting right now is, will there be a Crabs baseball season? So I think Ian and I can safely report this morning that there will be a Crabs baseball season. We're doing the final walkthrough with the Crabs on the field next Friday to make sure that we have everything in place. But all of the cities right now are actually coordinating around special events. So as opposed to each individual activity having to go through the certification process, we have identified about 15 venues throughout the county. And so we're working with Dr. Hoffman and his team to be able to certify each venue, and then the cities can work with the individual event holders. So on events, if they would like to hold them at the venues. I can't speak for all of the cities, but I will say in Arcata, we will have, we're working on 5 different venues, and our council has been supportive of those venues to support nonprofit events, but also for-profit businesses that cannot hold some of their traditional events in their indoor spaces to also be able to utilize these outdoor venues. So if you are an event promoter and are interested in holding an event, small or large, please reach out to the jurisdiction that you're interested in holding that event in, because all of the cities I know are eager to work with people to have some local opportunities for events this summer here in Humboldt County.
Now you too can become a Skywalker. After years of development and months of expectation, the city of Eureka announced this week that the grand opening for its Sequoia Park Skywalk will be held on Friday, June 4th. You see what I did there? While many particulars have yet to be announced, the city promises to hold a weekend full of special activities to honor the opening. The goal will be to allow as many people as possible to participate while still adhering to public health rules surrounding COVID-19. Prior to the grand opening, locals can experience the Redwood Skywalk starting on Friday, May 14th. Visitors to Sequoia Park Zoo can access the Redwood Skywalk during their regular zoo visits for an extra fee, of course. For more information, visit redwoodskywalk.com. For the City of Eureka's community conversation this week, we meet with Robert Robot Adams, also known as C-3PO, no, that's too much, April's Artist of the Month and Kinetic Rutabaga Queen for 2020. It's all for the glory, of course.
Hi, my name is Robot. I'm the director of Kinetic Museum Eureka at 518 A Street. And I'm the 2020 Rutabaga Queen for the Kinetic Universe. The week before the Kinetic Grand Championship, there is a 3-round talent and ball pageantry competition, and there has been for about 45 years. Every year they crown a new Rutabaga Queen who is the physical embodiment of kinetic glory, which if you've been around Humboldt County for a while, you know that's why we do it. We do it for the glory. The Kinetic Sculpture Race is a 3-day all-terrain, human-powered art sculpture race that starts in Arcata Plaza, goes through the Manila Dunes, goes across Humboldt Bay, goes through Eureka trails and back roads, and ends in Ferndale for a big, glorious finish line and an award ceremony and a banquet dinner. Some people refer to it as the triathlon of the art world, because it's art, engineering, pageantry. It's all about fun. Fun is the goal. If you're having fun, you won. I'm the director, historian, archivist, and curator of the Kinetic Museum. I do all of the jobs that need to be done to tell the glory story of the last 53 years. We're open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 2:13 to 6:32. I'm always actively seeking new donations and displays from past racers and current racers to add to the collection. Just anything that fills in the gaps to help best tell the story. We start in 1969 with Hobart Brown and the Pentacycle. And, we go all the way up to 2020 in the kinetic sculpture in place. We reimagined all of our events in the 2020 calendar to be digital and COVID safe. We had a remote Abega Ball where we had virtual participants. We had the kinetic sculpture in place where teams performed, challenges at their home that were similar to events you would face in the race. Eureka is unique in the art world because of stage builders. An artist knows how to find as much spotlight as they want, but I really like to champion for the people that turn on that spotlight. Like a performer, finds a stage, but who built that stage? It's the people behind the scenes that work year-round to make these events happen that makes Eureka an art destination.
A little bit of kinetic trivia. If you examine the footage from 1999, you'll see the horse, of course. It was a zebra, the pun thing, and it had stripes, but we didn't know if it was a horse or a zebra because what comes first, the white or the black? We were sponsored by Action News 6, and I pedaled the 38 miles over the course of that race, and that was one of the funnest evenings I've ever had. That's all of our time for tonight. 3 days, not just an evening. If you still need a vaccination appointment, log on to myturn.ca.gov to get yours today. As for my family, we're 1 down with 1 to go. So far, no major side effects. Did I mention how absolutely lovely those people are who staff the clinics? They're angels, every single one of them. Tomorrow, Saturday from 10 to 2 at Fortuna High School will also be a clinic. Remember to get your vaccine. Stay tuned. Stay informed.